On November 12th, a law takes effect that makes about 95% of America's hemp industry federally illegal. $28 billion, 300,000 jobs. Congress wrote it into a spending bill. Almost nobody read it. I did, and buried in the exemptions is one line that says an entire category of hemp doesn't have to die at all. If you grow hemp, process it, build with it, or have money in it, this video is the 20 minutes of reading you were going to have to do anyway. Except I've already done it. 3 things in order. 1. Exactly what becomes illegal, in plain language. 2. Who gets wiped out, and the number is worse than you think. 3. The exemption. Who's still standing on November 13th, and what they're going to be very quietly buying. To understand what's being closed, you have to understand what was opened. The 2018 Farm Bill legalized hemp, and it defined hemp with 4 words that would go on to create a multi-billion-dollar industry by accident. Delta-9 THC, under 0.3% by dry weight. But the cannabis plant makes dozens of cannabinoids. Delta-8 THCA, which converts to Delta-9 the moment you heat it, HHC THCO. None of them were Delta-9, so none of them were measured, so none of them were illegal. That gap is what the industry called the hemp loophole, and for 7 years it was the most profitable 4 words in American agriculture. On November 12, 2025, the President signed a continuing appropriations bill, Section 781. Here's what it changes, effective exactly 1 year later. 1. The standard becomes total THC, not Delta-9. Total tetrahydrocannabinols measured after decarboxylation, meaning after heating. THCA now counts. Delta-8 now counts. The loophole isn't narrowed, it's deleted. 2. A per container cap. Finished products get limited to 0.4 milligrams of total THC per container, not per serving, per container. Let that land. A product that used to be legal at 10 milligrams is now over the limit by a factor of 25. 3. A federal blacklist. The FDA was directed to publish lists naming which cannabinoids are permitted, which produce THC-like effects, and which are marketed to intoxicate. Those lists become the enforcement Bible. 4. And this is the one nobody's talking about, an exemption. We'll come back to that. So who dies? Industry groups estimate about 95% of existing hemp-derived cannabinoid products become federally unlawful. Gummies, beverages, vapes, tinctures, THCA flower, effectively the entire retail hemp market that exists today. Now here's the number that actually matters, and it's an agricultural number, not a retail one. Somewhere between 65 and 75% of all hemp grown in the United States is grown for cannabinoid extraction. 2/3 of the crop, grown for a product that will not have a legal buyer. And a lot of those growers committed to their 2026 planting season before this law passed. They put seed in the ground for a market that had an expiration date they didn't know about. There is standing inventory right now, biomass, extract, finished product, sitting in warehouses racing a clock. Manufacturers are already contracting. Some have stopped buying raw material entirely because nobody wants to be holding a legal liability on November 13th. This isn't a regulatory change, it's a liquidation. Now that line, the law carves out an exception, and the exception is industrial hemp. Hemp grown not for consumption, but for manufacturing. Fiber, grain, seed, stalk. The base fiber that goes into rope, textiles, insulation, and composites. The woody core, the hurd that goes into hempcrete and hempwood. The grain that goes into food and oil. None of it is intoxicating, none of it was ever the target, and the law says so. Which means, on November 13th, the fiber side of this industry doesn't just survive. It becomes the only side that's left. Think about what that does to the supply chain. 2/3 of American hemp acreage has to go somewhere. And decortication capacity, the machinery that separates fiber from hurd, is the bottleneck. It's been for years because there was never enough demand to justify building it. There is about to be a great deal of demand. Now, I'm not going to sell you a clean story because it isn't one. 4 things could go wrong. The FDA lists The agency was directed to publish cannabinoid guidance. Confirm the current status yourself, because those lists define the edges of the exemption. And if you don't know where the edges are, you don't know if you're inside them. The state patchwork. Federal exemption is not state permission. Some states are moving to preserve their markets, others are aligning with the ban. A few were already restrictive, and nothing changes for them. Where you farm matters as much as what you farm. The definition fight, intended for manufacturing, is doing enormous work in that sentence. Expect that phrase to be litigated. And the delay. There are bills in Congress to push this deadline back. This law could still move. But notice something. Every one of those fights is about the cannabinoid side. Nobody in Washington is fighting about fiber. Nobody has to. So here's where that leaves you. If you're a grower, your 2027 seed decision isn't happening in 2027. It's happening in the next few months. And the crop with a guaranteed legal buyer on the other side of November is the one that goes into a wall, not a gummy. If you're a builder, the material you've been curious about is about to have a supply glut and a price collapse. And I mean that as a buying signal. And if you have money in this, the asset that gets cheap in a panic is not the plant. It's the machinery. This is the first video in a series. Between now and November 12th, I'm walking the entire pivot. What fiber actually pays per acre, where the processing bottleneck is, and what hempcrete does and does not do, including the 3 ways it fails, which your builder is not going to volunteer. Start with that one. It's the one that costs people money. The clock's the clock.